The update is coming to a close at the end of this week, and I've got a collection of Krakens lying around. So we're going to start off with the first and best of those Krakens in HMS Rodney, the Tier 7 premium British battleship and the sister ship to HMS Nelson, which, for the entirety of Legend's existence, ever since the Nelson debuted years and years ago, has been my favorite battleship in the game, but I think Rodney has perhaps replaced it. It's essentially a Nelson, but it has better armor, and unlike Nelson, it's more focused on the armor piercing shell than the high explosive one. Plus, it's got the Soviet dispersion gimmick, so if we draw in closer, the accuracy is pinpoint and very satisfying. And then it's got those funny squiggly bow torpedoes that we're not actually going to use at any point in this match, but they are fun to get dev strikes on destroyers with. We just aren't going to get the opportunity. Of course, dev striking destroyers with Nelson's HE is also satisfying, but there's something funny about sinking a destroyer with one single torpedo from a battleship, of all things. We're not going to get to see that, but we will get to see a Kraken, and you may be familiar with the results of this game because it did happen on my last stream, but I know not everybody tunes into those or watches the entire thing after the fact. So hopefully you'll enjoy this one. We've spawned on this Two Brothers map, and we're going out to the Delta Cap in support of our friendly USS Laffy. He's going to run into some opposition, and the only assistance we'll have aside from the USS Laffy is a cruiser behind us. But I don't think either the Laffy or the cruiser are going to get too much done on this flank. We get off to a good start, though, with a 7,200 damage hit against USS Laffy on the red team. And, well, you could say the HE would be more effective, and you're probably right, but as you can see, you can get quite a bit of damage off of enemy destroyers, even with over-penetrations from AP. You just have to hit a lot of shells in order to do it. Now, we know that this cap is dangerous. There's a Hawk out there. There's Hector right there, and of course the Laffy, so lots of torpedoes to worry about. I think Hawk itself even has some torps, so we don't want to push straight into the cap right yet. There is a time to push and a time to kite, and initially we're thinking we need to kite a little bit. Hopefully we'll go dark here. Both Hector and the Laffy are concealed inside of smoke screens, and we're only spotted because we just fired our main battery guns. But there we go dark. So we're thinking, at this point, since we're not spotted and nobody can see us, we can turn around and we can push in a little bit more, but that is, of course, when USS Laffy decides to leave his smoke screen and reacquires vision. Now, for our part, our own Laffy is blocked from sight of anything by his own smoke and the enemy smoke, so Hawk, out there in the distance, is able to shoot, but maybe not quite in time. We're about halfway through our turn when his shells land, and they don't hit a citadel. On the other hand, Hawk is a bit of a glass cannon. Maybe that's an understatement. It really doesn't have that much armor to speak of, and the Citadel is extremely easily accessible. So that was a good hit against the Hawk, and he's going to take himself behind the island, which means we don't have to worry about his guns. Normally, you probably don't want to push into a situation where there's a cruiser with a ton of torpedoes and a destroyer as well. However, if you know the general locations of the destroyer and the cruiser or the torpedo threats in general, and you also know that you don't have to angle your armor against large battleship guns that can hit your citadel, that makes pushing in a lot easier. So by virtue of the Hawk's position, we can get a little bit more aggressive. Laffy is reacquired. Our own Laffy is chewing through his HP with his main battery guns, and we're going to try to assist. We've got a torpedo going out that way, but these are more hopeful, optimistic torpedo launches than serious ones, I suppose. There's Hawk, the main threat to our citadel. And speaking of which, well, I don't know about that. That is an awful lot of broadside, and this is excellent dispersion at this kind of range. 4 Citadel's devastating strike with the rear turret of Justice. We're already up to 100,000 damage, essentially, and not even 5 minutes have passed. And also, the biggest threat to us has been eliminated. You might say the Laffy is the biggest threat to us, and I maybe would have agreed with you at the time that I was playing this match on stream, but well, you would think torpedoes would be coming our way. You can see we're zigzagging here to avoid any torpedoes Laffy might be sending, but no torpedoes are forthcoming. Very odd. Laffy gets briefly spotted. The dispersion, like I said, pinpoint accurate, 5 shells, 5 overpens, takes away about half of Laffy's remaining HP. He does have a super heal, so maybe he can heal some of that back, but I don't think his concealment is sub 5.5, so we're going to have him spotted for the next couple of seconds. And again, the pinpoint accuracy with this AP, well, there he goes. That's our second kill of the game, and now all that's left on this flank is Hector, who, much like the Hawk, has decided he's going to present his flat broadside to our main battery guns. I swear these are not paid actors. They're doing it for free. And well, he's obviously going to launch torpedoes, so we're going to turn ourselves in toward that island and dev strike him. I think that's the second dev strike of the game with 2 additional citadels, bringing our total up to 6. And as Jingles always says, obvious torpedoes are indeed obvious. We avoid all of them in that single fire line, and now we will be able to take this capture circle after essentially single-handedly eliminating every enemy ship on this flank. And this isn't even a situation where we're top tier. This is tier 7 versus tier 8. Rodney is just a really good ship. And so we secure the capture circle with the help of, I think, the friendly USS Laffy. I don't think he went down. No, he didn't. He did go down. That was the cruiser that helped us secure the cap. So we did have a little bit of assistance on this flank in the form of that Laffy and cruiser, both of whom probably did at least a little bit of damage and perhaps provided a distraction for the enemy ships to shoot at and focus instead of us. So there is that. But now, this has turned into a little bit of a blowout, and, normally I don't like to put these blowouts on YouTube, but I think clearing that flank essentially single-handedly is worth watching, and any Kraken, I would say, is a good Kraken. We're 2 off of the Kraken right now, so we're going to need to sink 2 more additional ships, and there are only 3 left, so how are we going to get that done? Well, we're going to follow our friendly Hector over to the Charlie Cap, where there was a last known enemy cruiser sighted. That would be the USS Cleveland on the red team, and hopefully he's still in that area. USS Constellation certainly is, and he looks like he is about to be sunk, but ideally he's got a heal going and is going to restore some of that lost HP so that he'll float for just long enough in order for us to get our guns on target. He is still floating, and they've reacquired vision of him. Friendly Hector is busy shooting his HE at the Constellation. However, the Hector, while it does have decent DPM, is probably not equipped to take off all of those HPs more quickly than my shells can reach the reversing Constellation. And there we go. We yoink the 4th kill of the game and get the high caliber medal. So I feel like we probably earned that. And now, there's one juicy Cleveland left alive who's completely full HP, spotted, and crossfired by pretty much everybody. He's got our friendly cruisers in front of him, and then he's got us behind him along with the Hector. However, this is the time of the battle where the Rodney's dispersion and accuracy decides it doesn't really want to cooperate and be as pinpoint accurate as it was against the Hector and the Hawk before. The Cleveland is going to get a little bit of a reprieve from RNGesus, but not too much of one. Meanwhile, the last remaining enemy destroyer gets into the Alpha Cap and sinks whatever blue team member we had over there, leaving only this destroyer that's inside of the Charlie Cap and the Hector along with us, the only things left alive. However, Cleveland really stands no chance. As long as the Rodney's accuracy is going to be cooperative, which not really, although 4 full penetrations is alright. It's not exactly what we're looking for. And for some reason, the friendly destroyer decides now is a good time to open water gunboat the Cleveland. I didn't realize that at the time I was playing this battle, but kind of amusing. I'm not sure what he expects. We're going to save him, though. Or maybe not. 2 full penetrations and 1 ricochet. This is ridiculous. The Cleveland just needs to go down. Hector continues to shoot. Hopefully his salvos are inaccurate. I think his HE, a couple shells, could send that Cleveland back to port. But no. Our next salvo is out. Thankfully, we have a very quick reload. And finally, we get the Kraken unleashed and send the Cleveland back to port. That leaves the final enemy destroyer, the only one remaining, and we're going to secure yet another capture circle before this battle is over, with the assistance of the friendly DD and also the Hector. Now you can see we're pointed at the Alpha Cap, but that's a silly idea. We don't want to go there. We know the enemy destroyer has no reason to be there, and now the cap on the other side of the channel of this infamous Two Brothers map is turning red. So we know exactly where the enemy destroyer is, and while we never go up the middle in the beginning of a battle on Two Brothers, because it's a poor tactic that only works if the enemy team is potatoes, well, now would be the correct time to go up the middle and locate that enemy destroyer. I don't think we have to be too cautious about it either. The only way this enemy DD is winning is if he sinks all of us. And Le Fantasque, even after shooting at the Cleveland with his main battery guns, bit of a questionable decision, in my opinion. He makes a good decision, along with the Hector. They're going to go for the Alpha Cap and try to take that. They've decided, evidently, that there is no reason other than greed to chase after this final remaining enemy destroyer, and we, of course, are consumed by greed. We want that 6th kill to make a 6-pack with this Kraken. And we've got our reload fully maxed with the Epic Reload mod. One thing we don't have loaded, though, is the high explosive, and this high explosive is quite similar to Nelson's, lethal to destroyers. Certainly does a lot more damage than an AP overpen does. And if I recall correctly, the chat on the stream was asking me why didn't I switch to AP. And, well, you saw earlier the results we got against the USS Laffey. You don't necessarily need to have the HE loaded if all of the AP shells are going to hit. They can still do a lot of damage even with the overpens. However, if the AP shells miss and you only land 1 shell, probably HE is the better choice. There's USS Black, not exactly the most terrifying torpedo threat in the world. Slowest torpedoes in the game, I believe, even slower than the Italian sea mines, so fairly easily dodgeable. Salvos out, 1 shell. Not a kill, though. And so HE probably would have been the better choice. Just sort of pure laziness that we didn't switch to it, and that is unfortunately going to cost us our 6th kill. So much for black torpedoes being easy to dodge, by the way. Maybe I shouldn't say this stuff before they come and hit me right on the schnoz and then start a flood, but it doesn't matter. The Rodney has a super heal, and you can heal 100% of flooding damage, if not 100% of actual torpedo damage. Essentially, though, that is it for this battle. Another torpedo. Wow, we take it right on the bow. Good job, Xarkun. Black torpedoes are so easy to dodge. They're so slow. And we take 2. Ridiculous. Terrible. I don't know why anybody listens to me. Anyway, that is the end of this battle, and we win after essentially single-handedly dealing with the flank on the Charlie Cap. Maybe we'll even get another capture circle before this battle is over. Now, if you haven't seen this video, or if you haven't seen this battle on stream, take a guess as to how much XP you would earn. Remember, too, that you earn a lot of XP from taking capture circles, and the raw damage total that you do, which we've done 168,000, that doesn't influence the XP earnings as much as the percentage of an enemy ship's HP you remove. And if you recall, the Hawk, the Hector, we essentially removed 100% of their HP. That's the 2 dev strikes we got. And then the Laffey, I think our friendly Laffey helped on him a little bit, but we probably removed about 90% of his HP, along with taking 3 capture circles with 1 full cap and 2 assists. How much XP do you think that is going to net us? when this battle is over. And by the way, the high caliber metal is a good indication because you get that based also, I think, on the percentage of HP that you take from, I think, 4 different enemy ships. So, high percentage HP taking here. We also get the Dreadnought, which probably adds some onto it. And we finish the battle with this 168,000 damage done, 1.2 million credits earned, and 4,300 base XP. This is my record of base XP in Rodney. I've never done anything over this 4,307, but, maybe someday. Rodney is an excellent ship. I think you can still buy it today if you're interested, but maybe wait until the next update in the Black Friday. I don't know that Rodney itself will be a Black Friday ship, but they often have discounts available on existing premiums that you can buy. So, maybe keep a lookout for that. Hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.